Hello, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to Surround Health's third webinar in our professional development series called Advancing Your Healthcare Career. This is Dominica. I'm the Community Director of Surround Health. So just a couple of things to keep in mind as we move forward with the webinar. We will be taking questions at the end. So if any questions come up, please be sure to type them into the questions section on the control panel. We will also be tweeting during the webinar using the Twitter hashtag #SHWebinar, so we hope you join us. If you do have any issues or questions, definitely email us at communitymanager@surroundhealth.net. And also to get CHES and RDCE credits for which we have been pre-approved, please be sure to complete the survey at the end of the webinar. So we do have a wonderful webinar planned for you today. Paul Bridle, who is our speaker, has been studying successful businesses and organizations for over 20 years throughout the world and focusing specifically on people who lead them. His research has helped him determine the mindset and methodology required to become a successful leader. And I will now turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Dominica, and good morning or good afternoon to everybody wherever you are. Welcome to Carving Out a Leadership Role in Healthcare. It's a great pleasure to be doing this session with you. We're going to spend a bit of time here together, and I just want to get a few things clear for you so that you can understand where I'm coming from. I want to try and make this as practical for you as I can. I want to give you information to challenge your thinking a bit, but also give you things that you can take away and actually use starting right away with what I've got. So that's my burning aim out of the session. And what I want you to do is to commit to find just one thing in this that you can actually take away and use. If you just take one thing away and use it, then you'll find that this hour we've got together is a useful period of time. It's always difficult with webinars because you don't get to see me and I don't get to see you. But as Dominique has already said, please post questions in there or comments in there if you want to. And we've built in a bit of time at the end there so that I can deal with those with you. So let's get a bit of background to me in terms of where this is coming from. For 23, 24 years now, I've been studying leaders and effective organizations, trying to understand what makes a good leader and, in particular, how effective organizations operate. So to start with, what I'd like to do is try and put leadership into a perspective for you. You see, leadership, being in a leadership role is, it has four separate demands. And this applies across industry sectors or whatever you're doing. And I want to take you briefly through those four demands, and then we're going to focus on one of those demands today, and I'm going to give you practical stuff that can help you. But let's just look at what the four demands. Imagine here you've got a screen in front of you, and you'll see I've divided it into four quadrants. Imagine as a leader, you're standing right at that center in the little cross. And the first demand of you comes from customers, clients, patients. In other words, it comes from people external to your organization, your hospital, your clinic, your company, your association, whatever that you're a part of. There's this external people who have expectations and demands of your hospital, clinic, organization, association, whatever it is. And so as a leader, you are responsible in terms of the demands that are coming in from that quadrant, if you like. And it's obviously a changing quadrant. It's an area customers and clients and patients' demands do change over time. But that's just one of the four areas that are demanding of a leader. The second one is the organization itself. This is your hospital, your clinic, your association, your business, your company, whatever it is that we're talking about here under the broad heading of organization. In this here, we've got various demands in terms of keeping to legislation, keeping up certain requirements. In the healthcare industry, you've got various rules and regulations about patient care and about the way that you handle medicines and store medicines and so forth. But then there's also the financial accounting, ensuring that things are done properly in that area. So there's a lot of systems and processes around that area. The third one, and this is the one that we're going to be spending some time on in our session with, and that is what people want from you as a leader. And what people want is different from what the organization or the hospital or the customers or the patients want from you. People have personal needs, and they're looking for you as a leader to help them and support them in that process. And then finally, we have what you need from it. And often overlooked by a leader, what are my needs here? Because if your needs are not being met, then you generally will find that you become ineffective in some of the other areas. So this is looking after your own well-being. It's looking after your own personal life, your family life, and making sure that you've got those balanced or integrated in the right way. So there we have it. There's 4 separate demands on a leader, and they are very, very different in what they want from a leader. You'll find probably that in one of those 4 areas, you're better than others. One comes pretty naturally to you. Most people find that one of those areas is something they really tend to be really good at. Maybe a second one they can be a little bit okay with, but very rarely you find people are excellent in all 4 of those areas. So good leaders are constantly understanding those demands and realizing what they need to work on, and to make sure they have people around them that compensate for their areas of weakness. So with that framework, if you like, of understanding the pressures of being a leader in this day and age, what we're going to focus on today is the people one. What do your people want from you? What are people expecting of you as a leader? And how do you go about responding to that? And that's really where my initial research began. 20-odd years ago, when I started looking into the subject of leadership, I actually went out and started interviewing people who were good leaders, effective leaders, and asking them, what it was that they thought was good. And I discovered very quickly that if I really wanted to understand it from a people point of view, I should go and ask the people who work for good leaders, what is it that you expect from this individual? What is it that this individual is giving you that makes you feel that they're a good leader? So that's what we did. We went out and interviewed over 3,000 people and asked them that simple one question. What is it about this man or this woman that's your leader that makes you want to respond to them as a leader? What I discovered was that there were certain consistent themes that came through. You can imagine when we've interviewed 3,000 people, I had a lot of feedback. But there was consistent things that were coming through from from all of the individuals. In fact, 97%, I think it was, came up with 5 specific characteristics. And those are the 5 I'm going to take you through in this session. So let me try and put that in perspective for you. 62% of people interviewed said a sense of humor was important to them. They liked the fact that their leader had a sense of humor. 62% tells me that it's a nice-to-have quality. It's what people would really like in you, but it isn't absolutely necessary. So if it's 95, 97% of the people saying something is what they want from you, then I think you'll agree with me. It's pretty much what you need to be providing consistently, no matter what industry you're in or what position of leadership you're holding. So let's run through the 5. I'm going to go through them quite quickly to start with, because might as well get it out there and let you know what the 5 are. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over the 5 of them, and I'm going to put some more meat on the bones and give you some things to think about. And then when we finish that, I want to do a little bit on what style of leadership do you need with different types of people. So we'll do that towards the end as well. So what do people want from you as their leader? Well, let's go through the 5 very quickly. I call the first one having a vision. What people were telling me was they wanted to follow somebody who knew where they were going, They wanted to work for somebody who had focus, who had direction, who was goal-orientated, who was, you know, knew what they were trying to achieve. So I called it vision because it's about direction and about focus, if you like. The second one was about values. And this, another word for this is integrity. People respond to somebody that has integrity in their eyes. And integrity is very powerful. Probably of the 5 of them, this is the most powerful one you can have. And integrity is something that you earn, you have to work at, but you can also lose very, very quickly. Let me try and explain it this way. If somebody walked into the room that you never had met before in your life, you didn't know who they were from a bar of soap, they walked in the room and they started saying to you, boy, you lot look like a waste of time, you look like you're not doing anything, you would probably get very defensive with that individual. But if somebody you knew well, somebody that you really respected walked in the room and said, cool, you look like a waste of time, you look like you don't know what you're doing, you would probably laugh and say, why? What is it that you see? What is it that we're doing that makes you think that? So you would respond differently, even though the same words were used. And that's what integrity is. It's that relationship with somebody that makes you understand that no matter what they say, you accept them, that they have your best interest, or that they're doing what they think is the right thing for you. Very, very powerful of the 5, and something we will spend a bit of time on, and I will really challenge the way you think in relation to that area. The third one is about people. I mean, at the end of the day, being a leader, a lot of it's to do with people. It's getting people to do things. You can't do everything yourself, and nor should you, so you need other people. So the skill is getting other people to do it, and do it as well as they would do it, or if you were doing it. So it's engaging with people, it's getting people focused and so forth. So it's very much about our relationship with the people. The fourth one, I call it nurturing. Maybe if I turn this one on its head, who wants to work for somebody who thinks they know it all? And typically people go, no, I don't want to work for a know-it-all. Nurturing is people want to work for somebody who's, one, willing to learn, but more importantly, willing to develop them. And particularly these days, this is a significant point around the younger generations. They want somebody who's going to develop them. I want somebody who's going to help me grow. I want somebody who's going to teach me. I want somebody that I can learn from. So I called it nurturing. It's about your own nurturing and about nurturing others that are in the team that you are a leader of. And then finally is the leader's ability to let go, the leader's ability to delegate, to empower, to let people take ownership for their role and their responsibility. Again, quite a significant one, because many leaders struggle with letting go, but people like somebody who's prepared to let go and allow them to take ownership. So there we have 5 qualities that came up over 95% of all the interviews that we did. And in recent polls that we've done, these things are coming back consistently as what people want from a leader. So let me go and expand on each one of these, and this is what I want you to be able to do. You see, as I go through each of them and I explain them in more detail to you, I want you to imagine that I was able to go and talk to the people that are on your team. And you weren't around, and I was able to ask them these questions. And I want you to, the question I would be asking them would be, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is pretty poor, 10 is outstanding, how would they rate you? I want you to imagine that that's it, and rate yourself through your people's eyes. In other words, don't say it through your own eyes. You can sit there and say, oh yeah, I know where we're going, I'm very good. The whole point of this is If people don't believe you know where you're going or have these qualities, then even if you have them, it's meaningless because they don't believe that you've got them. So I'll ask you at the end of each one to consider that. What is, how would you be measured if I talk to the people who do it for you? This will give you a gauge, by the way, as to which one of these that are your strongest and which ones are your weakest and which ones you need to be working on. So let's get started with the first one. I wrote there and said vision with passion. Nobody wants to work for somebody who doesn't know where they're going. That's pretty obvious. But it's more than just having the vision. It's the way that you can express it to people. It's the way that you can articulate it. It's the way that you can explain it. And it's the passion that you have behind it. You see, nobody is going to have more passion, more commitment, more energy, if you like, to do what's required than you do. So the question is, how high do you set the bar every day? Because if you don't have the energy and the passion and the commitment to what needs doing, and you aren't sharing that with people continuously, then if you set the bar too low, you give them very little area, if you like, to operate within. So people feed off your own enthusiasm. People feed off your energy. People see your commitment, and that inspires them to be committed as well. So how do you rate yourself? Are you somebody who comes into work and you're down and you've got a long face and you let the rest of the world get onto your shoulders so that you arrive at work and everybody goes, oh, look at him or look at her, keep out of their way today, they're not, just mind your own business today, because they're in a bit of a mood. You're suppressing people's enthusiasm. You're suppressing their commitment and their focus, for that matter. So a good leadership is the person who comes into work, and comes into work with the right frame of mind, and is constantly, clear about this is what we've got to do, and reminds people. Because you know what it's like when sometimes there's so much going on in your life and so many issues on every day. It's like, stop the world, I want to get off. Why are we here again? What are we trying to do? What is it this is all about? You can get very into the detail if we're not very careful. So people are looking for somebody who can just sometimes tap them on the shoulder, remind them, this is why we're doing this, this is where we're going, keep focused. Don't let these issues get us down and get us distracted in some way. So vision with passion, it's the energy, the commitment, the dynamism by which you keep people focused. A lot of people say to me, what's the difference between a vision and a mission? A mission is something which says, this is where we want to be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years' time. Or a mission says, this is where we want to position ourselves in the world or in our society. And people often put, we want to be the best provider of health care, or we want to be the best provider of doing something. That's a mission statement. It's a statement of focus. A vision statement describes what it will be like when we're doing it right. In other words, it takes the mission statement or the purpose statement or whatever it is that you got, and it brings it to life for people, where people go, oh, right, I understand now. It's like painting a picture in their mind's eye about this is what the world will be looking like, this is what things will be happening when we're achieving that mission. So it's, personally, I'm not a big believer in vision statements being written down, because it's by listening to the leader and hearing the way the leader articulates it, the way the leader expresses it, that engages people. When it's in writing, it is that. It's in words on a piece of paper or on a board or on the wall, and it doesn't have the same passion behind it as when you hear somebody saying it. The other thing about a vision is your ability to articulate it and express it in a way that's meaningful to the person you're talking to. So for one person, you may express it and put a slightly different slant on it than to another person. Now, I'm not being political when I say that, but when I say put a different slant on it, you would make it meaningful to that person in their lives compared to another person. So if you were talking to somebody at a senior level in an organization and somebody at a more junior level in an organization, you may pick your wording differently because you want to pitch it at the level that they would understand. So vision is really the way you say it, it's the passion you say it, and it's a descriptive thing which brings the future to life in people's mind's eye and creates the aha effect where they go, ah, I get it, I see now, I understand. That's important because business moves and things change, and our lives are constantly having to move quickly. So people need that refreshing and reminding from time to time. So how would the people working for you, how would they respond if I asked them to measure you on a scale of 1 to 10? How good are you at showing your commitment and your enthusiasm and being able to articulate and describe where we're going to them in a way that's meaningful to them? How would they mark you? Write down a number, and because that's the real you is the way they describe you, not what you think of you. That's what being a leader is about. So moving on to the next one, which is about values. I call this one having a consistent set of values. Let's get one thing out of the way before we delve into this one in any depth. We're not talking about being liked. A mistake I find many people making is thinking that being a leader, I need to be liked by my people. No, you don't need to be liked. You do need to be respected. And that's what values give you. It's having respect for that individual. And if they have that respect for you, even if they don't like you, even if they don't agree with you, but they actually have a respect for you, then you have a leverage, you have a position with them which is of influence with them. So it's having values they understand. What do you stand for? What's important to you? And can they relate to those values? Okay, and we've all got values. And people, if you're not careful, will assume what your values are if you aren't very clear about what you stand for. So if you're clear, you stand for good quality of service, then they go, okay, I understand that. But if they see you going around cutting corners and not delivering a good quality of service, then they realize that, that's just something you say. Your real values are, and they see it by the way you behave. So that's why behavior is so important, and it creates our values and people's understanding of our values. Now let me touch on the word consistent with you. And this is going to be really powerful and will make you think a little bit. You see, consistency is important to people. You've probably heard people before say, or the expression being said that people don't like change. In reality, I don't believe that. I think if there was no change, we'd be bored. And you can imagine if there was no change at all in your life, you would probably be completely and utterly bored. Now, am I saying that there's 1% of the population that actually would be happy with boredom? Probably is. But for the majority of people, change is not the issue for people. What people don't like is inconsistency. And that really does bother people. People like to know where they stand on issues. They like to know where they stand with other people. Let me try and explain it to you with an example. Maybe as a child, typically the person who's a constant in our lives is probably our mum and dad, maybe a teacher, somebody in our life who, no matter what happens in our life, we know we can go to that person and that person's going to be there for us. So maybe you're down the playground and you're playing with some toys and some friends, and then the village or the town bully comes along, the school bully comes along and smashes your toys and taunts and teases you and maybe thumps you and hits you and does nasty things. So you go running home to your mom or your dad or whoever it is, and they pick you up. They're the constant in your life. They're the ones who you know how they're going to respond to you. They're going to pick you up. They're going to dust you off. They're going to remind you that you're better than those kids and that you should never act like that. They're going to probably put a plaster over the cuts and bruises, kiss it better. But then they're going to do the most important thing for you, and that's send you back out there. And the reason you can go back out there and play in the playground again is because you know that that constant, that person is always there for you. They'll always be there. And as we get older, our constant changes. It's no longer necessarily our mom and dad. Maybe it's our wife or our husband, or it's a friend, or it's whoever it is. And in the environment of our workspace, the leader is our constant. This is our responsibility with people, is be consistent with them. I want to know where I stand with you. I want to know that, you say this is important. Is it still going to be important tomorrow? Because there's nothing worse than going in and having a leader that says, right, this is where we're going. And then the next day it's, no, we're going this way. And you go, oh, hang on a minute, I thought we were going that way. No, we're going this way. And eventually people sit there going, hang on, what are we doing here? You're not consistent. You say one thing's important, then you say something else is important. One day it's this, the next day it's that. Now they're trying to spend their time figuring you out because you are inconsistent. So my point is this. People can deal with change. They can deal with the issues with patients and patients' family and all the issues that they face every day. But they want to know that their leader behind them is the one that is being consistent with them. In other words, if they come running to their leader going, oh, this isn't working, that's gone wrong, they want to know that that person is going to figuratively pick them up, dust them off, refocus them, and send them back out there. So in other words, it's a very important responsibility is to that level, being consistent with people. It allows you to build that integrity. And without it, then people trying to figure you out. What do you want? Do you want people trying to figure you out, or do you want people focused on figuring the customer or the patient or whoever it is out? And obviously we want them focused on that, not on trying to get on with us. So a really important, I said, and I spent a bit longer on this one because it is that important. Of all of them, if you get this one right, a lot of other things become easier for you. But believe me, it's not something that it's something you can lose very quickly, and it can take time to gain. It's like a bank account. You're constantly making deposits in people's emotional bank account, building integrity with them, so that when you do have to tell them off, that's like making a withdrawal from the bank account. You want to make sure that there's enough left in the bank account that you don't become overdrawn. Because the moment you become overdrawn, of course, that means the integrity goes, and you're no longer somebody that has that relationship with them. So if I went back and talked to your teams, how would they rate you on a scale of 1 to 10 with this? Are you somebody who's consistent? Are you somebody that they feel is there for them and that they can rely on, and they know how you'll act and you'll respond? And are you somebody that they feel that, yes, you have integrity in their eyes? What score will they give you? And write that score down, because that's probably the real you. So, a bit heavy that one, but I hope it gives you something strong to think about. Next one is about people. You'll notice that I've put down here love of people. A lot of my friends at the time said you shouldn't use the word like love. It undermines, in a busy business life, work life. It's not about love. But the truth is I do believe it is about love. there's different forms of love. The Greeks had 7 words for our one-word love in the English language, because the way you love a mom and dad is different to the way that you love your pet dog or your horse or your cat or whatever it is you've got, which is different again to the way that you love your hobby or you love your home, and which is different again to the way that you love your holidays or whatever. So, there's different types of love. I'm not talking about a sexual love here or anything like that. We're talking about a fundamental appreciation of people. People matter. People are important. And the people who work for you realize that if you could do everything that you're doing at the moment, if that leader could do everything that you're doing, then they wouldn't be employing you. Why would they? Why would they waste money? So they realize that they're employed or they're part of a team or they're whatever it is because they've got something of value. And this is something I'm always amazed at, because people are they're very intuitive generally. People are understand things, and people know their value. The cleaner, I may only be the cleaner. My job may not be as important as the financial director, but I add value. It may be at a different level to somebody else's value, but I add value. Now, do you appreciate the value I offer? Are you appreciating the value I bring to the table? And so leaders are good at understanding people's value and recognizing the value that people bring to them. And if you want a tip about how you can develop yourself in this particular one of the greatest ways you can show people that you are a people person is how good a listener are you. How good are you at listening? Listening is not a human trait that's easy. Let me try and explain it to you this way. Your brain runs at something around about 550 words a minute. Okay? I can, even if I'm talking very, very fast to you, I'll get to around 250 to 300 words a minute. I may, if I was really, really fast, can talk very, very quickly. I may be able to get to something like 350 words a minute. So in other words, there's a big difference between the speed of which I talk and the speed by which you process information in your brain. And that means that you can only listen to me for so long because your brain's actually slowing down to listen to me. And so what happens is after a while your brain gets frustrated and you shoot off. You may have done it already in the time we've been together. I've said something and your mind's gone off onto something else. And you've been thinking about it. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's why that happened. Your brain wanders off for a little while because your brain needs to operate at its own speed for a while. Now, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly natural. The trouble is that we come over as not listening. So listening is a skill. Listening is developing a skill of allowing your brain to slow down long enough. And if you want one of my techniques, when I find somebody's talking and my mind's wandering, I ask myself a question. And I say, what am I going to ask this person when they finish speaking? What am I going to say to this person when they finish speaking that will be meaningful and helpful to them? And then what happens is it forces my brain to stay longer and listen to what the person's saying. So there's a little tip for you about developing that relationship with people and be a good listener. Really work hard at being a good listener. So once again, I ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, if I went and asked your people to rate you as to how good a listener you are, how good are you at showing your appreciation that you value their contribution and so forth, then how would they rate you? And by the way, don't fall into the trap of saying, oh yeah, I praise my people all the time. The danger we often find with leaders is they give the praise and recognition and reward that they like. I like to be recognized in this way, so that's how I recognize my people. Some people don't want to be recognized, and the assumption that the way that we recognize them is the way that they want recognition is a bad assumption. So take the time to find out what motivates somebody, what inspires somebody, and respond to that rather than what you think people want. In other words, if you think everybody's motivated by money, then you think money is the only way to get people going. In many cases, it's not. So, when we talk about recognition of people, it's about recognizing them based on what they need in terms of recognition. I spoke about the consistent set of values as probably being the most powerful of the 5. Nurturing, and I call it nurturing champions, I'll explain that in a second, is probably the most important in some ways of all the others. You see, the world's changing so fast that we're having to relearn often what we thought we already knew. I read a statistic recently that the average university graduate in any of the sciences, so that's physics and technology and medicine and so forth, what they're learning in year 1 of their degree is generally obsolete by year 4. In other words, the world is moving so fast and so much is happening that what we're learning now will very quickly become obsolete or irrelevant within 2, 3, 4 years. So the need to nurture and develop becomes so important. It starts with yourself. What are you doing about learning? What are you doing about showing people that you're open to learning? What are you doing about sharing your knowledge and learning with other people? So the ability to nurture yourself and the ability to nurture others is what people really like and really respond to. Why do they use the word champions? Because leaders know that people, some people, we all have areas of our strengths. We all have areas where we're good at something. We also have areas that we're just not good. We're never going to be good. You can give me as many training sessions as you want on this. I'm never going to be any good at it because it's just not me, if you like. So champions is about finding what you are and developing that within you. So knowing the person and going, okay, where is this person's strengths? How can I capitalize on those strengths? And how can I compensate for the weaknesses made by people around them or something? And that includes yourself. How do you make sure the people around you complement you in your areas of weakness, not match you in your areas of strength? So again, if I went and talked to your people on a scale of 1 to 10, how would they rate you? Give yourself a number based on what they would tell me was you in terms of willingness to learn, willingness to develop that. And finally, overview. And I called it overview with overalls. A leader must be prepared to let go. A leader must be prepared to let people have a go, take ownership for their job. They must be prepared to delegate. It's a whole subject in its own right in many ways. But I put with overalls because a leader never wants to give the impression that those jobs are meaningless to me now. I wouldn't be doing those. A leader is always prepared to put on the overalls, or put on the gloves, or get stuck in and help. But they also don't want to do that if it's not necessary. They want to give people a space by which that they can take ownership for their job. And that's not easy. I'm not going to pretend it is. I've not met a leader yet that has said that it's easy for them. It's something they've had to work at and develop within themselves. Because often, we've worked hard to develop ourselves in an area and be really good at something. I don't want to give it away. I give it to that person over there, they'll mess it up, they'll break it, they'll do it all wrong. That's so frustrating. Let me just give them something else to do and I'll keep doing this. Always remember talking to a guy who owned a business and he opened his own mail every morning. I said, you run a $30 million company with 120 employees, 150 employees, whatever it was, and you still open the mail? I said, why would you do that? And he goes, well, I like to know what's going on. I go, come on, And he goes, well, I like opening the mail. I go, yeah, but is that good use of your time? What does that say to your people? And they see that, the mail has to be opened by you every day. It doesn't show trust. It doesn't show that you are looking to concentrate on the important things. It looks like you just focused on doing the things that you like doing. It's not a good message for your people. So, if I came and stood next to you, how quickly in the day do you think I would start noticing things that you still do that you know you shouldn't do anymore, but you just like doing? Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not leadership. Leadership is where you're developing people to be able to take the job. So I'm going to give you my definition, one of my many definitions of leadership. And you might want to write this down. I want you to really think about it. And I want you to, for the next 30 days, to actively think about it. In other words, I want you to come to work for the next 30 days saying it to yourself at least 3 or 4 times before you get to work. Here's my definition of leadership. Leadership is the art of working your way out of your job. Leadership is the art of working your way out of your job. Now, I'm not saying you'll be unemployed. I'm saying you're positioning things so that they can happen without you. That frees you up to move to another level. That frees you up to move on to other things where you can be more effective. So leadership is really about, another way of putting it is this. Let me try and put it this way to you. If you got run over by a bus tomorrow, and heaven forbid that happens, how effective can the team be without you? Because if they are that dependent on you, you've not been doing the job properly. Right? That is where the importance of the delegation and empowerment comes in. So again, if I was to go and talk to your people and ask them the question about how good you are at letting go, how good you are at letting them take ownership for things, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would they rate you? What score would they give you? And write that score down next to this as well. So there you are. You've got 5 qualities that people look for in a leader. 5 expectations. And now I've got some really, really bad news for you. And this is hard, but you need to understand it. When you do all 5, your people won't notice. All right? In other words, when you get all this right, they're not even going to notice. Why? Because they expect it of you. Okay, it's like going into a restaurant. When you go into a restaurant that provides food, you expect it. You're not surprised when you're not delighted by the fact they do it. You expect it. They've got a menu. You expect it. Place is clean. You expect it. These aren't things that you expect and are delighted by. You expect them, and so, in fact, the only way they can get it wrong with you is if they get it wrong. So if the fork or knife on the table when you sit down in the restaurant is dirty, you would never have noticed if it was clean, but you would notice if it was dirty. The tablecloth is clean, you don't notice. If the tablecloth is dirty, it becomes the focus of your attention. So when you do these things and get them wrong, that's when people notice them. Okay? When you do them right, people will just accept them. Well, that's your job. So there we have 5 qualities. The diagram I put up on the screen here. If you would like, I can give you that on a PDF and just ask Surround Health. They'll get that for you. And print it off and put it somewhere. Look at it once a week and ask yourself, how have I demonstrated these qualities? Don't ask the question, have I got these qualities? Because you'll say yes to yourself because you think you're wonderful. What you're wanting is, how have I demonstrated these qualities to my people this week? What have I done to demonstrate that I'm good in these 5 areas? And that'll be a way of measuring yourself on an ongoing basis. Some people ask me what's the difference between being a leader and leadership. It's a great question. It's a little bit like being a friend and being friendly. Okay, I hope to come over on this webinar as being friendly. I like to think I'm a friendly person, but you're not my friend because I don't know you. Okay, so it's a different sort of a relationship. Being a leader is like being a friend. It's about being, the word being there. It's about who you are. It's about the essence of you. It's about the way you think, act, breathe without even thinking. You can have leadership because somebody's given you a job. You can have leadership because somebody's given it because you've got a specific skill. Maybe you're really good at something. in healthcare, or you really, so you've been given that leadership responsibility. So, you can have leadership. It doesn't automatically mean that you are being a leader. Being a leader is something that you are working at, and it's about who you are as an individual. So there's a very distinct difference there, and it's worth considering that difference as well. And then that brings us to the question I often get asked, and that is, what style of leadership do I need? And this is one of the eternal questions. What type of leadership do we need? And I'm sure you found it. You see some, maybe in your work life you've discovered it, some very authoritarian, directional type of leaders. They're still good leaders, even though they're come over as quite hard and disciplined and very forceful and directional. And yet, other times you've seen people who are quite forceful and directional, and it just failed. And then the other end of the scale, some very democratic people who are really good at, being democratic in their style of leadership. And I don't know about you, but I've seen those fail, and I've seen some being successful. And that's what bothered me was, that, if you read all the management books, it's, you should have a more democratic style of leadership and everything else. Well, I've seen that work and fail. And people say, you shouldn't be so authoritarian. Yeah, but I've seen that work and fail. So what is the answer? And one day, I was at a conference, and I met Madeleine Albright, and she said to me that democracy only works if there is a significant middle class. Well, that's an interesting statement to make. And I thought, well, why is that the case? And the reason is because when you've got a middle class, you've got enough knowledge and understanding amongst people so that they can have a debate, and then hopefully through as a result of that debate, they can elect the right person. So I started to see this question of a directional form of leadership or an authoritarian approach to leadership and a democratic as like a barometer. My grandmother used to have a barometer on the wall in the days before we had weather people telling us on television and radio what the weather was going to be today. And we would have to look at it. And imagine it as an autocratic and a democratic as two ends of the spectrum, if you like, the two opposite ends of the scale. On the far right-hand side is the democratic style of leadership, where you really are empowering your people and you just let them get on with it, and you can just focus them and let go, and they really get on and do things. They don't need a huge amount of input from you. And then there's the very autocratic, directional style leadership, where you seem to have to be standing over them, making sure, checking with them every inch of the way. And there's various gradients in between. What style is needed? Well, that largely depends on the level of education and knowledge that these people have got. The more, and I'm not talking about skills, you can be a very competent clinician, you can be a very competent nurse, you can be a very competent person in your job in terms of skills with the job, but the more knowledge and understand of the broader issue, the trends, the market forces, the financial issues, the more wider the range of information about things, other than just basic skills, allows you a more democratic style. And you get some people who say, I don't want to know all that, just come and tell me what to do. Well, those are people that are actually asking for an autocratic form of leadership. And then you get some people who want you to let go, but they're not prepared to learn. And so they're wanting a democratic style, but you can't give them that because they're not prepared to learn and understand the wider issues. So basically what style is needed, look at the individuals in your team. How well informed is this person? How aware is this person? How much knowledge does this person have about issues and trends? How much appreciation does this person have of the bigger picture of things? And the more they have, then the more of a democratic style you can adopt with them. The less they have, the more of an autocratic or directional is going to be needed. If you appreciate this, then also understand that if you only know one style of leadership and the people you're leading have got a different level of knowledge and understanding and appreciation, then your style may not mix with theirs. And the other thing to notice about this is your style of leadership has to adapt and evolve. It has to move based on the circumstances and the people involved. In other words, and I did some work with the British Army, the British Air Force a number of years, because leading a group of people in wartime and in peacetime is two different types of leadership. And when it's wartime, it has to be autocratic because people don't know a lot of the big plan, but they still need leadership. In peacetime, there isn't a war, so they can be told a lot more, and it needs to be more democratic. So, think about what your people know, and in terms of, remember what I said about nurturing and developing your people, what wider issues, knowledge and understanding and appreciation can you develop them in that enables you then to have a more of a democratic style of leadership. So there we have it. We've covered an awful lot of ground in 50 minutes, and I hope in that I've given you plenty to think about, and what it's like in your industry. I've worked with your industry. I know it's a challenging industry to work in, as many others are. But I hope I've given you just at least one thing in there that you are able to take away with you and start working with right away today or tomorrow and apply it. So let me hand you back to Dominika, and we'll take some questions.
Thank you so much, Paul. So again, if anyone has any questions, please type them into the questions tab within the module to the right. We did get a couple questions via email. So the first one, Paul, is, can anyone be a leader, or is it something that you are born with?
One of the most famous questions I get asked of all. Are leaders born, or is it something that you can learn? Let me try and put it this way to you. I believe we are all leaders. I believe every human being on this planet has the ability to lead. I think there's no finer leadership anywhere than a mother bringing up children, for example. I mean, how awesome a responsibility, and it's an amazing form of leadership. I think a teacher in a classroom is a form of leadership. So there are many, many places where there's leadership. And I think the skill and the art is for people to find where their ability to lead applies. Because the way a teacher brings up kids or teaches kids in the classroom is a different style of leadership to a chief executive of a company or a senior person in a health practice. It's different again to a nurse on a ward, or and it's different again to somebody who's a politician. So it's finding, well, where is my strength in terms of being a leader, and where can I apply it to get the best benefit? I don't believe that, I used to have a picture once of a midwife delivering a baby, and the baby popped out, and she went, oh, look, this one's a leader. That one we had yesterday wasn't. It's as though there's some sort of trait you can see stamped on the child's forehead that tells you this one's going to be a leader and others are not. I don't think it's like that. Of all the thousands of leaders I've interviewed over the 24 years, 23 years that I've been doing this, they're all very different, but they've all found the way to apply their ability to be a leader. And whether it's in volunteers in groups, or whether it's CEOs of major corporations, they've worked at it, they've developed it within themselves, and then they've reinvented it within themselves. It's not something you will ever just get right and that's the end of it. It will be a constant process of reinventing your style of leadership to suit the needs of the people you're dealing with and the circumstances your organization's faced with. So I think if we look at it in that light, and then can focus on, well, where am I most effective? Where could I be most effective? And where's my natural ability to lead? And can I find a place to apply it? that's when we can be most effective and really good at it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Paul. So the second question is, what happens when people don't see me as their leader currently? What next steps would you recommend I do to kind of change their view?
It's a good question. In answer to this, I would ask a question back of you to consider. Why do they not see you as their leader? Okay, why are they not responding? Because in many cases, it's an issue they have, not necessarily an issue you have. Okay, and if you want to be a really good leader, you'll take the time to find out what it is that is needed in their situation. So ask yourself, is it? And you're going to laugh at this, and it is funny, but it's not meant to be funny in that way. Maybe you just remind them of somebody they don't like. I know that sounds funny, but I've seen it many, many times. When I've tackled somebody about, well, why is it you don't like this guy? And I actually, funnily enough, had it this morning before I came on this webinar, where I was talking to somebody, and they were telling me how bad this person was. I said, be honest with me, what's the problem? And they thought about it for a minute, and they went, reminds me of such and such. And it was a person that they really didn't get on with 20 years ago, okay? And it's just something, the way the person combs their hair or the way they wear their clothes or whatever. So there could be just a simple reason that's there, that's not your fault even, that you need, or you could address with them. I don't see any reason why if you're any good as a leader, you can't sit down with an individual and say, what is it I'm doing wrong? What is it you need from me? But most of all, having said all of that, I would say to you, just some people don't click. And if you've got somebody like that, maybe they need to be in a different team. Maybe they need to be moved to a different place where they can, the person in that, leader in that team can work with them. And there are some people, that doesn't matter who you are, they're not going to be led by anybody because that's that's their nature. So there can be a number of issues. I'm not saying don't look at your own style and look at your own situation, and I hope I've given you a few tools here today to do that. But equally, I'm saying don't take the blame fully on your own shoulders. Try and see it from a different angle and say, well, okay, what is it that could be an issue outside me that's actually, so it's not me that's the problem, but they're just taking it out on me. So I'm not sure if that helps or not.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. So we have time for one last question. So this question is, I'm a department leader. There are occasions when I need to direct a project that crosses departmental lines and involves other leaders. I preside in these situations and am accountable. Other department leaders are not performing adequately and may not agree with the assignment, have different priorities, etc. Can you give me any suggestions for improving the outcome?
Wow, there's a question I need a lot more time to go into in any great depth with you, and I need to know a lot more about the circumstances, but I'm going to give you a few thoughts. It's a very common issue that's coming up these days. More and more people have more than one person they report to. There's dotted line performance, all this sort of thing. As a leader, get hold of their leaders, the other people that they report to and so forth, and have that conversation with that individual. I've got their part-time working for me, part-time working for you, or whatever it is. I need this from them. What do you need from them? Let's you and I not be overburdening them with something. Let's come to some sort of agreement here how we can make this work. The more you can do in preparation and groundwork and involve the person even in that preparation and groundwork, the higher the rate of success is. Now, I noticed at the end there you said they're not doing their bit. This is where gaining integrity with the individual becomes so important. If you can win that person over, because if you think about that person in their position, they're forced between 2 or 3 different people here that they're having to satisfy. Well, I'm not wanting to be derisive, and I don't think it's good to be derisive. That's why I'm saying talk to their other managers or leaders. But if necessary, and that's not getting you anywhere, then if you win integrity, this person is having to choose between the three of you which one I'm going to prioritize with. So you want to put yourself as the priority one of the three. And then hopefully by that, you can then go back even and influence the other two because they see you have the integrity or the influence with the individual. So now they'll want you on their side so that the person you're dealing with performs for them as well. So there's no easy solution to this. I wish we had longer to talk about it, and I'd love to know a lot more about it to be able to help you more detail. But in essence, it's a common issue, and those are the type of things that I would give you in a very short period of time to think and consider, and hopefully that helps you. I think, Dominica, you said that's the last one?
Yes, it is, and we're actually out of time. So thank you so much, Paul. This was terrific, and thank you to everyone.
Please
sure.
Connect with me. Please connect with me in any way that you want to. If you've got other questions, it sometimes takes me a day or two to respond to people because I travel a lot. But there you see in front of you different ways of connecting with me. I'll reach out to me, and if I can help, I will. And it's been a pleasure to spend the time with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. So thanks again to everyone for attending. We will have an ongoing discussion with Paul within the Surround Health webinar topic. Paul has also very graciously shared a wonderful leadership workbook that he has developed, which we will post right in that as well. And I just want to ask that you please complete our feedback survey. And again, thank you very much for attending. Have a great day.